This episode of Deep in the Weeds is proudly supported by Olsen Salt, makers of Australian sea salt since 1948.
Be the best for yourself, be the best for the customer, give your best to the people.
And I think now we are ahead and we can drive from the front instead of constantly being on the back foot, which is good. It's good.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. We've talked on many occasions how Australia's food culture is the result of waves of migration, how new Australians bring something special to the table and add further colour to the culinary offering. Some are so influential they become the beating heart of a city's food scene and take it in a new and exciting direction. Oskar Rossi and Federica Andrisani are the chefs and owners of Fico in Hobart, Tasmania. Oskar, Federica, how are you?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Hi.
Good. Hobart's food scene has blossomed in recent years, and you've both been a massive part of that. Oskar, tell us what it's been like in the last couple of years to be part of this new wave of food in the capital of Tasmania.
Look, it's been pretty exciting. It was a shame, last year kind of ground everything to a bit of a halt for everybody, but it's been very good.
Federica, you're not from Australia, you're from Italy, and you guys actually met over there. What's it been like for you creating a restaurant in Australia, having grown up over in Italy?
Very, very difficult. We live in Tasmania, in Hobart. It's not really Australia in some way. I find Australia very multicultural, when Tasmania is very different. I born in Naples. Naples is a very chaotic city. Beautiful, but really busy. Tasmania is the opposite. Tasmania is very quiet, beautiful nature, and the people, we live in Ireland, so the people are very close in some way. So it was not really easy for me be part of a community in some way. Now it's very good, it's amazing, but take 6 years for be part of Hobart.
Well, I think to get the full Fico story, we need to go back in time a little bit. Oskar, can you tell us about your time in Melbourne and then how you guys came to meet over in Italy?
Well, yeah, cooking started for me a little bit before that, actually. My dad migrated here from Czechoslovakia in the 70s. And he actually opened the first sort of restaurant cooking game, focusing on game, doing sort of pigeon, hare, venison up in the Midlands, in between Hobart and Launceston in the 70s, which was, there weren't many restaurants down here then. I think it was mainly in hotels and things, was kind of where the licenses got given. And so I kind of grew up around him cooking at home, prepping game, and there'd be venison hanging in the shower and pheasants hanging all around the place, and stocks on all the time. So everything used to have this kind of pungent aroma of game cooking. And then I went to Melbourne when I was 20 and did 5 years at Voudemont for Shannon, which was definitely, if I could do it again, I absolutely would. Cooked some good food and met some amazing people. And then, went and did 6 months in Oman at Al Bustan with Josh. Josh Lewis was the head chef from Fleet. And then went to Italy, Europe, worked on the boats for a couple of years out of Majorca, which was amazing, sort of being able to cook the sort of food you want to cook and different produce, different cultures. One day you wake up and you're in Turkey and you go off to the markets and, it was great. And then sort of in the off season, we got time. So I used to go stage around the place, and a good friend of mine, Lorenzo, who I met working at VU actually, had just got his first star at El Coq in the Veneto, which was where I met Freddie.
Federica, tell us about that time when you guys met, and because it led to you moving to Australia. But take us back to then.
It was more than 7 years ago when I met Oskar. I was pastry chef in El Coq, and I had a very good time there. I was working already for like a couple of years, I think, there when I met Oskar. And he arrived, I think he had like a lunch and dinner the same day there. I bring a couple of dessert over on the table. I explain in my very, very bad English, because at the time I was not speak one word in English. And after that, we spent a couple of days in the kitchen together for like dish development or study new dishes together. And we decided to open a restaurant together after a week. We was working together pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very good connection.
I mean, I think it was probably a little bit tongue in cheek at the time, but it was something that kind of never stopped. And here we are.
Well, how did you make that decision to move to Australia and start the journey which led to Fico?
We decided to just have a holiday. So we went in Tasmania for a holiday for like a month. I have a working holiday visa, something like this. It was like 3 months, something like this. And we decided to do just one pop-up in a Criterion Street Cafe that is owned by a friend of Oskar. So she was very happy. So we did like just one pop-up, Saturday night pop-up. That was obviously closed during the night. So after that, we decided to do 3 months pop-up and extend my visa. And in the end, it was probably 8 months. Yeah, it was great. It was very successful. The people love it because at the time it was probably just garages. A good restaurant going out, so like we was doing different food, and yeah, it was always full. It was great.
It was a really good way to kind of actually road test having a restaurant and kind of get an idea of what we wanted to do, and engage the interest of the community, and yeah, without the overheads or the risk of actually opening a place.
Have your own place.
Well, we can get to about Fico shortly in detail, but how different was the food back then in the early days of the pop-ups compared to what's going on now?
Oh my God.
It was, but yeah, you imagine, you're doing prep off-site, and then you have to load everything into the back of a car, or, back of a refrigerated truck and get it there. And you're walking into a cold kitchen, everyone else has got all their prep in the drawers, and, you need to kind of clean down and set up, and it's pretty chaotic. I wouldn't go back to doing pop-ups in a hurry.
Federica, you hadn't spent much time in Tasmania before embarking on all of that. How different is it dealing with the produce and living in Tasmania compared to what you had back home and working in kitchens there?
Well, here is very difficult to find a good product if you don't have a connection. When in Italy, it's like everywhere is super easy. You don't need to have a connection with the people that grow in the food that you cook. You can have it, but you don't need. Here, you need to have a very good connection with them. Like, it's a very good question because, for example, in 1 hour, we will go to Susie because tomorrow we have a function in the restaurant. So we'll go there, and Susie have like a backyard when she grow all the vegetables and herbs. It's all organic. We go there, have a look at what she have, and building the menu around that. And after that, we go see Phil. He's the pigeon man. So he growing pigeon. He's just out to Broadmarsh, and he's a very special man. But it was very nice because I was a little bit sick last week. So yesterday he called up Oskar and say, "How Freddie feel? She's good?" So it's like really almost like a family. We call each other. We are worried about each other. We go see each other. We go for a lunch to Phil. We don't go and take pigeons. We go just see him. Yeah.
In those early days with the pop-ups, was there any times when things just went wrong and you thought that this wasn't the right thing to do?
Oh, I make one day, oh my goodness, yeah, so many times. But I can remember because we have like a small freezer, small fridges, something like this. I don't know what's happened. Somebody left like the door open of like the fridge, and I have all my pasta inside. And I put the pasta in the boiling water, and the tortelli start crack. And I have like potato filling, like almost liquid, and all the filling starts coming out. That was nightmare.
I know, because we opened kind of with sort of on a shoestring budget, I guess you could say, and it took a long time to find a backer or somebody to sort of just get us off the ground enough, and then even longer to find a space. Like I remember we used to walk around the streets of Hobart looking at every possible space. And I mean, it's difficult when you're looking at change of use and everything. You know, there's some spaces that would work, but you know, by the time you look at all the bits and pieces behind it, it's not that easy to find a suitable restaurant site, believe it or not. Yeah. So there were times when it was like, we ended up going back to Italy, and we were almost going to open in La Marche, in Fano on the Adriatic. And we had a kind of a place locked in, and it was all going well. And we came back here to do a wedding for some good friends, and it all fell through while we were back here. So we ended up basically staying and deciding to focus on opening in Hobart.
Well, you did find a site, and Fico's just exploded as one of the best restaurants, not only in Hobart, but in the country, and you've won many accolades. Tell us about the restaurant, and how do you work together in the kitchen to create the dishes?
Believe it or not, right now, well, Oskar is in majority in the kitchen. I am on the floor most of the times, because we find a lot easier have one of us that welcome the customer. I'm still working in the kitchen. I do like one service a week in the kitchen, and also like all the prep and stuff like this. But working like with Oskar is pretty easy most of the times, and working like think about dish together is like just natural. That's not, we don't need to force each other to think about dishes. We just speak all the time about like a product or what we can do with this, or this is an idea I have, and if I start with an idea, he finish the idea I have. We help each other most of the times, so it's just like super natural. It's not work. It's just like a nice conversation that is like 24 hours on 24, pretty much.
Oskar, can you take us through a dish or two and explain how that collaboration works?
No, I think honestly, it's the reason the restaurant has done well is because the way we work together. I think that's like the beating heart of everything. I think without that, the place wouldn't exist. It wouldn't be anything, I think. And I think it translates into the food, the atmosphere, everything. It's like, the love and care that is, like Freddie says, 24 and 24. It's both our life passion and dream doing what we're doing, and to find someone you can do it with and make it work, it's definitely a good test for the relationship is to open a restaurant together. It doesn't always end well.
This episode of Deep in the Weeds is proudly supported by Olsen Salt, Australia's oldest family-owned salt company.
It's probably one of the most sustainable industries on earth. There have been salt fields in Africa and Europe for thousands of years that they're still taking salt off. And, the product is beautiful, and I'm really proud of it. Hi, I'm Alex Olsen from Olsen Sea Salt. Salt all over the world can taste differently, and that's because salt has character, in the same way that a wine has character from where it's grown. So salt from the Eyre Peninsula has a very fresh, clean, crisp flavour that some of the best chefs in Australia appreciate. My father took 10 years to develop the sea salt flakes, and he didn't want to release them until they were good enough to be put on the world stage. And this is a justification of that 10 years of hard work that he put into making the sea salt flakes world standard, and an affirmation to him that what he did and all those plans and all that hard work has not been in vain.
For more information, go to olsens.com.au. Well, tell us a bit about the food and the experience that diners have when they come to the restaurant.
I guess it's a little bit of like any good restaurant, but it's a little bit of a reflection of our own personal journeys and, what we like when we go out to eat and, what we like to cook. And we've tried, I guess, the advantage of not having a budget to start with is that you get to do things over time. So it's been quite an organic process, a slow one over the last 4 years. In fact, we just closed for a reno last week. That's why we couldn't chat, unfortunately, because we were covered in dust. But I think this is kind of one of the final stages of the restaurant. And it's like we've gotten a little bit warmer. All the walls are ochre, dropped all the lighting down. My dad did these beautiful tables. He's an artist and he doesn't normally make tables, but he made some for us with inlays of wood, and they had quite a dark stain on them, so we've sanded them all back. And they're excuse me, and they're really, really beautiful and light now. So it's kind of like coming into our home, I guess. It's like, it's quite a warm space, and it's reflected in the cooking. We like to have a little bit of playful fun with snacks in the beginning. So quite a few different snacks, 4, 5, 6 snacks, and then we move into pasta, risotto, which we cook a la minute, obviously. Beautiful Tasmanian truffles, usually mostly all year round. There's a bit of a 3-month gap, but coming into winter ones now. Some pigeon or hare or venison for main course. Usually try to stick with game, something interesting that, not everyone cooks. Down here you get wild shot hares pretty frequently and pigeons from Phil. Unfortunately, they haven't allowed us to use wild venison yet, but I think that's been a topic of conversation for about the last 50 years. When they'll loosen those laws up a little bit, and then just a bit of fun with dessert. It's also lucky enough to have my father do quite a few pieces for the restaurant, so there's like some art. You
mentioned the background growing up with your father with game meat, and also that's reflected on the menu at Fico. What's the response been like to having game meat on the menu? Because as you say, there's not a lot of restaurants that feature it so extensively as you do. Always good. People, hare's always a good one. Kind of, that's something people don't often eat. I think actually probably the most problem we've had is with wallaby. People have got something about wallaby. I think it's probably because they're cute, and but no, really good. It's funny, we had a lamb brain tortelli dish on, which we like to do offal as well, and we expected quite a lot of rebuff from that, but actually nobody. Everyone just gets into it and enjoys it, which is surprising, even the kids. Federica, can you take us back to when you first started getting interested in food and kind of what led to a career in hospitality?
Well, I was a very hungry baby, a hungry kid. My mom always she always tell me that I was really hungry. And I love food. When I was little, I'm just I was surrounded of people cooking. My mom, my grandmother, my father, everybody's cooking. And in my family, we always have a lunch, for example. And in the meantime, we have a lunch. We think about what we're cooking tonight. I grew up with a very good cooks. Like my mom and my father are pretty amazing. They are not chefs. They are not cooks. They just cook at home, obviously. And Naples, all the food in Naples is fantastic. In Italy, in general. So thanks to my family and my country, I just start cooking when I was little, just for my family, because my mama was working until later. It was just me and my sister, so I start cooking. I did artistic school because my mom don't want I started cooking career. She's a teacher and my father is a doctor, so was a little bit like be a chef is not really what you need to do. After finish artistic school, I continue ask them if I can start cook. They say no. Do university. Great. I studied anthropology for 3 years. Yeah, and actually that was very important for moving to Australia and for my cooking career. Understand, was very open mind time. My father my mother and my father was like separated, so my father was living in Le Marche at the time. Now they are back together, but it's another story. And my father called me and say, you know what, you are so testadura, he said, hard head. I understand you want to be a chef. I have one opportunity for you. Is a 6 month stage in 3 Michelin star. Is a friend of mine.
Wow.
Have this restaurant. Do you want to come? And I was like, oh my God. He obviously says it's for free. So they obviously don't pay you. You will clean muscles for 6 months, but you probably learn something if you like. So he tried break me pretty much. This is what he was trying. I did the 6 months in this amazing restaurant. It's called Uliassi. It's the best fish restaurant in Italy. It's top 50 in the world. It's just like amazing. And I was so lucky to find them because they are like a family restaurant still. So the people that work in this restaurant, they work for the last 30 years there. You know what I mean? Like no one is new. Everybody it's like a family. It's fantastic philosophy. And after that, I decided to don't go back to university and continue. I studied for probably for the first 2 years of my career because I always want to work in a good restaurant. If you don't have like a curriculum, decent curriculum, nobody take you. So I studied in Reale. That is another amazing restaurant in Abruzzo. And after that, I started to work a little bit more serious and professional in Milan, in Pustardi alla Scala, and in Le Marche again. And I went in as cook in the end, and I met Oskar.
What's it been like for you? Fico is Italian at its foundation, the food that you do there, but you're using Australian ingredients like wallaby, which does not feature in Italy. What's it been like using Australian ingredients and translating that through food?
Well, I think Italian food is a philosophy. It's not what ingredient you use. It's more like a kind of philosophy. So it's how you cook the things, how you look at the product, how you treat the product, and like for example, we do risotto, no? Oskar said we cook alla minute, we cook al dente, and is how we cook the risotto that is Italian. Is not what we put inside the risotto. And obviously we use carnalori rice. We never can use arborio rice. That makes sense. So it's the philosophy behind the dish. It's not what you put inside.
You guys have been, one of the main restaurants really leading the charge for the new wave of dining in Tasmania. Oskar, what's it been like the last year? What sort of impact has COVID had on what you guys do in such a small state?
I mean, there's the obvious negative impact of closures. It's always sad to lose good restaurants. I guess the positive ones, the interesting ones is something we always kind of tiptoed around was doing set menu only. And this has kind of, I guess, pushed people towards that. When, there's nothing more heartbreaking when you've got a busy Friday night and you have 2 tables come in at 7. So they've got the table for the whole night and they have 1 glass of wine and 2 antipasti in 4 people and sit there for 3.5 hours. It's like, guys, come on, this isn't a lounge room. So now, given a lot of people the confidence. I know Agrarian's gone tasting only. Diamaker's now tasting only. I think, there's quite a few places, not just in Tassie, that have kind of gone down that road. And, it just gives you more opportunity to focus and more opportunity to actually give people a solid 3-hour experience, a bit of escapism. That's been a big positive for sure.
Federica, Italy is still having its challenges with COVID. What are you hearing from family and friends back home?
Look like nothing changed for the last year, pretty much. So they went to lockdown a year ago. They are still in the same situation. It's not a happy place. My sister live in London. My parents live in Italy, and they are just like exhausted. Nobody can see actually the light still.
Oskar, can you give us a sense of what it's like in Hobart at the moment? There's regional centres in Australia are really booming as people can't travel overseas and they're really exploring Australia. What's it been like for you guys?
I mean, it's kind of, good. The town's well and truly back alive. I mean, it's quite difficult because obviously Freddie speaks to her parents every day and her sister every day. I've got friends in Europe. Quite a few guys in the kitchen have mates in Europe, and just how good we've got it here is pretty special. And I don't think people should take it for granted.
The events of the last year have impacted many, and it continues to globally. What sort of positive changes has it had on you personally, Federica?
Is for us, like, the lockdown was almost I don't want to say almost a positive thing. So we was before just before COVID hit. Me and Oskar have a little bit of trouble in some way. Was like overstressed. We was overworking. We was like working so hard, and obviously this impact our relationship. So we have time to stay at home together for 4 weeks, and think about and speak about what's the future of the restaurant, what's the future of our relationship, and
why are we actually doing this? What do we want out of it?
Yeah, what is important for us, and now we do, like, we work like 4 days a week. We have a couple of days off, then we spend together at home, and it's very nice. We never did that before. We never have time to actually sit down on the table, cook something for us, and have a nice conversation when we eat a nice food, cook from, at home. Our day off was always like, we have only 1 day off, so we need to go out and da. Now it's not, you know what I mean? It's like you never have a time in hospitality before, or like in our life, to just just calm down, relax for a second. We have a couple of days off. We don't need to do everything in 24 hours, but just because we work so hard.
The other big positive is actually that it's pushed the restaurant now to a 3.5 day working week. So we do the luxury of having a prep shift on Thursdays, and then we do 3 days of services, which is really great for the guys. It's great for us, and it's probably another thing that we wouldn't have been able to make happen if we didn't have the time to think about how to do it.
One of the beautiful things that you guys do is you feature the producers that you use on your website and really champion them on the menu. What's so great about produce in Tasmania once you make those connections?
So we fight so hard for find the best product, obviously. We for find them take a lot of time, and but when you find and you make that connection, what the people give to you is just unbelievable. So like I mentioned before, Susie, Phil, but there is still the fisherman, it is Aiden, and then call us whenever fresh fish, and it's every week.
He goes out fishing probably 2-3 times a week, and he'll call you the night before. So fish has been out of the water for 6-7 hours, and it gets dropped off. He's usually got the boat on the trailer and a couple of big eskies on the back.
Wow!
And it's spectacular. It's kind of better than Tokyo fish market sort of fish. But that being said, sometimes you won't hear from him for 3 weeks, so there'll be no fish. So it does make cooking a little bit different. You kind of have to be flexible on changing dishes pretty quickly, and you need to be fluid in the cooking a little bit more. from working in Melbourne and stuff, where you know you're going to be able to get something for X amount of time, and you can run the dish for 2 months and not really change it. Here, it's one day to the next, depending on what's available.
You just finger cross and hope that the dish work, because you never know.
You mentioned that the last year has given you pause and made you find balance in your lives between work and home. How much has changing that and finding that balance sort of changed you guys and the way you approach your careers?
Well, personally, before, I have a little bit different mentality about like restaurants and career. And like my father, when he understands I want to be a chef, he say, I don't care what you do in your life, just be the best. And I always take this very like in my heart. It's like, I think like if you need to do something, you need to do properly and you need to be the best. Until last year, I was thinking that be the best, meaning have like 3 hats and stress yourself so much for be the best and have recognition. Now I change a little bit my mind, and I think be the best for yourself, be the best for the customer, give your best to the people. That is a little bit different.
Oskar, have you felt change as well as a result of the last year?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, probably. I mean, a hard one to sum up. It's probably still happening, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, just approach, like Freddie said, approach to work, and yeah, where I guess where we're going in 5 years, 10 years, and making the restaurant and the whole journey sustainable over a long period, and actually. And have fun doing it isn't easy. When you like, we spent so long looking for the site, and then you open, and we didn't actually start thinking about the food until we were halfway through the first service, and it was like, fuck, what are we doing? Because it was like all the things. We had about 2.5 months to open. We opened on the 18th of December, middle of Christmas, everything. It was like, and since then it was just bananas. It was basically always on the back foot, always trying to catch up, always trying to get ahead. And I think now we are ahead, and we can kind of actually, drive from the front instead of, constantly being on the back foot, which is good. It's good.
It took 4.5 years.
Yeah, it took 4.5 years, but...
Well, Oskar and Federica, hats off to you guys for what you've gifted Hobart and what you will come moving forward as well. It's extraordinary what you do, and we've loved hearing your story today on Deep in the Weeds. Please keep in touch, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Huck. It was a pleasure.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.